everyone, Kelly here, and today I wanted to share with you the books I read in the second half of November. If you watched my wrap-up from the first half of November, you know I had a very tough reading time those first couple weeks of November, like lots of lower rated books. But I'm happy to say the second half of November is much better. Like, I'm going to do these in order of the way I enjoyed them, and the lowest one I have is a 3-star, and it wasn't even like a bad 3-star. It was a high 3-star, and then the rest are all 4s and 5s. So definitely much better time the last half of November. I enjoyed everything I read and have a lot of fun stuff to share with you. I also, almost all of these were involved with different readathons. So I'll just mention what prompts I read them for. Some of them counted for multiple readathons, and I'll just let you know about those as we go. So let's just go in order from the one I like the least to the one I like the best. Like I said, all of these I enjoyed a lot, and the least was a high 3 stars, and that was The Thorn and the Blossom by Theodora Goss. Theodora Goss is the woman that wrote The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter in that series. So I just read her book, and I was like thinking I wanted to check out what else she had written, so I just looked kind of like at her other stuff on Goodreads, and it turns out she had a few short stories, and I was like, let me just try one, because some of them sounded interesting and kind of like fantastical. So I picked this one up, and it's really interesting. It is a very unique way to tell a story. So basically, it's like a love story or romance that is told from 2 perspectives, so it's told from both of the main characters. And if you start on one end of the book, you follow the woman's perspective. Is her name Evelyn? Sorry that I didn't write this down. So you would start from the female's perspective and hear her whole story of how they met and their relationship and everything. And then it stops, and then we start with Brandon or Brendan. Like I said, I don't remember their names. And I guess that if you buy this in the actual physical book, that it's like, if you open it from one side of the book, it's her story, and if you open it from the other side, it's his story, and you can start on either side. I read it as an ebook, and so they put her first and then him, but it does start back at the beginning. So like when you start, whoever you start with, you're getting the whole story from each of their perspective, but the same like time period. And I thought that was a really interesting concept. It worked well as a short story, the way she was doing it, because, you know, even though we were skipping in time and stuff like that, it was just covering the highlights of their relationship and all that stuff. And overall, I thought it was really unique and fun. I also liked that it dealt with kind of like fantastical things as well. I don't want to go into detail since it's so short, but I will tell you, I read this as part of the Leading Ladies Readathon, which was hosted by Kara from the Wild Book Garden and some other hosts. I'll link that down below. And this worked for the prompt of Robin and Marion read a retelling. These were all, the Leading Ladies Readathon were all movies that Audrey Hepburn was in. So this was Robin and Marion with Audrey Hepburn. And it was read a retelling. And this story, The Thorn and the Blossom, is not necessarily a direct retelling, but involves a lot of the Green Knight story from kind of like King Arthur and Sir Gawain, is that how you say his name? And he was the Green Knight, and so that story kind of takes heavy place inside this story and maybe could consider a retelling. I don't know how you would say that exactly, but it's kind of like based off of the Green Knight. And so I liked those kind of elements of it. The reason I gave it 3 stars is because you're doing the entire story over again and you're seeing it from 2 people, I wanted it to be more different. Because, you know, like you can be having a conversation with somebody and then you kind of are like reviewing what you talked about, and so many times you're like, you said this, and the person's like, no, I didn't say that. This is what I said. You hear what people say different than what they actually say. And so I really thought it would have been an interesting tactic for her to have done the same conversations, but have them be slightly different from each person, because they come into it with their perspective of what they think the other person is saying. But it was like the same conversation exactly in both stories. So that was a bit disappointing, because I wanted it to really be more about how perspectives change depending on the person. So that's why I gave it 3 stars. I thought it had potential to be more by the fact that you were telling it from 2 sides. And now continuing on with some other books that I read for the ladies readathon. One of the prompts was about Audrey Hepburn's life, and the prompt said, in her later years, Audrey Hepburn became very active in social causes current to her time. So in honor of our current time, Native American Heritage Month, read a book by an Indigenous author. And I ended up taking the entire week of Thanksgiving, and I read a bunch of like Indigenous picture books to my daughters because I thought there's going to be plenty of time in their life that they're going to be learning about the Americanized like Thanksgiving, and I just don't need to start them out on that. Like, I'd rather them learn more about other cultures and about Indigenous people and things like that before they get fed the like, you know, white version of history. And so these are the 3 favorites, so I just want to show them in case you want to share some picture books with your kids. These were the ones we liked the most. This one is called Zoe and the Fawn, words by Catherine Jameson and pictures by Julie Flett. And they also had a translator. What was his name? Richard Armstrong. And both the author and the translator are from the Okanagan Nation of British Columbia. And the reason they have a translator is that in this story, anytime there's an animal, I don't know if you can see this, there'll be an animal, they'll have the English word for the animal and the Okanagan word for the animal. And so I thought that was fun to kind of like teach kids another language and stuff like that, so they can at least see what that language looks like. And this is just a cute little story about a girl named Zoe who her and her dad are in the woods and they see a fawn and they're looking for the fawn's mother. And as they go along, they see all these other animals that aren't the fawn's mother before they find the fawn's mother. And so, yeah, so every animal they encounter, you see the name of the animal in both languages. And the other one I really enjoyed was The Star People, a Lakota story by S.D. Nelson. And S.D. Nelson is a member of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. And the artwork in this was just gorgeous. Like, I just really enjoyed seeing the way the art was. That's why I loved this book and reading it. My kids really enjoyed it as well. They asked for it a few times. And this is all about these 2 kids that are a brother and a sister, and they go for a walk and they kind of get a little far away from their village, and then a forest fire happens, and so they are trying to get back to their village and run away, like get to safety. And they encounter their grandmother who has recently passed away in the stars, and she helps guide them back to home and back to their parents. And so it's a nice story about like family and about connecting to the spirits that have gone before us and stuff like that. So really beautiful. I would highly suggest that one. And then I wanted to share my daughter's favorite. It wasn't one of my favorites because she made me read it like every day for the whole week, but she obviously loved this book. And that was Thunder Boy Jr. by Sherman Alexie with illustrations by Yui Morales. And this one is all about a little boy whose name is Thunder Boy Jr. and his dad is Thunder Boy Sr. And he's just talking about his name basically and how he doesn't want to have the same name as his dad, and he doesn't want to be Little Thunder, and while his dad is Big Thunder and stuff like that. So it's all about names and stuff like that. And my daughter just really loved this book. And it was fine. I mean, like, I would still suggest reading it to your kids and all that stuff. It's just, you know how it is as a parent when you are forced to read the same book over and over and over again. I was getting tired of it, but it is a sweet, cute book. And now back to the adult books I read. So now we're moving into my 2 4-star books, and both of these were for Nonfiction November. So the first one was Have More Fun, How to Be Remarkable, Stop Feeling Stuck, and Start Enjoying Life by Mandy Arioto. And the author of this is actually the CEO of a mom's organization in the United States called MOPS, which is Moms of Preschoolers. And I've been in MOPS for years, and I was given this book as like a door prize at a MOPS meeting. And so I thought this was a parenting book, and I went into it like expecting it to be a parenting book. And that's why I think I did this for Nonfiction November for the prompt discovery, because I want to discover like more ways of being fun as a mom. But it turns out it's not really a parenting book. It's just about having more fun in your life in all different aspects. So she talks about having more fun with self-improvement, having more fun with work, having more fun when things don't go as planned, having more fun with sex and marriage, with your body, with parenting, with spirituality, with friendship. Like, she covers a lot of different categories. And it's just basically about how as you get older, sometimes you don't really focus on the fun and joy of life as much. You get caught down in the like doing the laundry and the dishes and getting the kids ready to go out of the house, or like getting work done and stuff like that, and you forget to really see the joy in life. And that's what this is about. It wasn't what I was expected, but I still got something out of it. I obviously took some quotes and stuff like that. There is a Christian focus in this. It's not conservative. Because I don't really like to read books that are like have a little conservative Christian view. So I would say this is more of a neutral Christian view. So if you're not Christian, you probably could still get something out of it, and it wouldn't be like in your face with the amount of Christian talking. I just enjoyed it and liked some of her analogies and stories, and I got a little bit out of it. I needed it, I think, at this point in COVID, where I've been like stuck in the house with the kids for 9 months, and I feel like I'm low on the fun reserves, because I've just been really like out of energy. So I think I just needed a reminder to just be more joyful, and it was really good to do right before like December, when I had more fun stuff planned with the kids, and to just relax and enjoy myself and not worry about getting the dishes done every time. And then the next nonfiction book I read was A Honeybee Heart Has 5 Openings by Helen Jukes. And this one I ended up listening to. I had the e-arc of this from NetGalley months ago and never read it. I think I said in my TBR when I talked about Nonfiction November that I'm just done with NetGalley because I just don't read them. So I did end up bringing this one, but I'm not getting NetGalley books anymore. And I ended up listening to it because it's already out. But this I used for the Nonfiction November prompt of buzz, because it's about bees. So it worked out. And this was an enjoyable book. This is a memoir about 1 year in this woman's life as she becomes a beekeeper. So at this beginning of this year of her life, she is just not feeling a lot of fulfillment in her job and in her life. And so she decides that she wants to learn more about bees and become a beekeeper. And so before she even gets her hive, she does a lot of research. And so this book is really heavily talks about like the history of beekeeping, because she researched all that and talks about what she learned. And then it's about her getting her hive and what it was like having her bees the first year and processing honey for the first time and all that stuff, and the bee group she met and all that. And I just found it really interesting. I actually at first gave it a 3-star when I first read it, because it was one of those books where I was listening to it for like a half hour and I was enjoying it. She doesn't narrate it, but the narrator is British as well, so it has the same accent as her. And so it had this like kind of calming British accent talking about bees, and like just kind of a calming kind of book. But it was one of those where, yes, I'm enjoying the atmosphere of this book, and then I got really bored and didn't want to listen to it anymore, so I put it away, and then I wouldn't read it for a few days, and then I would pick it back up and listen to it some more. So I first gave it 3 stars thinking I didn't really enjoy it, but then when I was done, several weeks later, I was like spouting information I learned from this book and talking about bees with my nephew, who took like a whole like class about insects and stuff like that. And so we started talking about bees, and I was talking about some of the stuff I learned in this book, and I'm realizing a lot of this really stuck with me and the stuff she talked about. So I ended up bumping it up to 4 stars because I do think it has a lot of information. It's kind of a nice, calm memoir if you're interested in bees, but if you don't know a lot, because I would say this is very basic information about bees, and I'm not somebody that knows much, so it was helpful for me. But if you have already read about bees, you probably wouldn't get like a bunch of new information from it. But it was a really relaxing audiobook to listen to if you just need something calm. And then I ended up doing an audiobook that was a reread, but I just wanted something kind of fun that I would just really have a good time with. And I remember reading My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brodi, Ashton, and Jodi Meadows when it first came out a couple years ago. and enjoying it. And so I wanted to pick up the audiobook, and the audiobook is really well done. I thought the narrator did a great job, and I just had a lot of fun with this. So this actually starts my 5 stars. I gave it 5 stars. I don't remember how I rated it the first time because that was before Goodreads, but I really enjoy this book. It's just fun. Like, that's not necessarily any substance. It's just plain fun. And I ended up reading this as part of Tome Topple, the readathon where you read books over 500 pages that is put on by Thoughts on Tomes. And this is the only large book I ended up getting to. It was a long audiobook, so it took me a while, but I just enjoyed it. It's just a kind of retelling, fantastical retelling of Lady Jane, who was like an heir to the throne of England, like for, I think like she became queen for 6 days, 9 days in real life, something like that. A very short amount of time before she was killed. And this book takes that and like completely throws away history and just develops a whole thing. There's fantastical like people that could turn into animals, stuff like that. It's just fun. I enjoy it. You probably heard of it because there's a whole series now, and it does make me want to continue on with the series because I think that the audiobook was just really fun. So I'll probably listen to the next one. And then next I picked up another reread because I was just feeling like some comfort kind of books, and that's what this month, like that second half of the month, was a lot of comfort books. So I ended up reading The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. This is the first book in the Books of Bayern. I read these a long time ago. I think it was over 10 years ago, and so I had forgotten a lot about them. I really want to read the series again, so I picked it up, and I love this. 5 stars. I ended up reading this for several different readathons. For the Fall Into Reading Challenge that I was hosting with some other friends, I did this for the prompt of beloved author, and then for the Leading Ladies Readathon, this fit in with Breakfast at Tiffany's, read a book featuring a friends to lovers trope, because the characters in this, they become friends first, and then, yeah. And then I also do this for the BookTube Readathon for July, which I know it's not July, but I got really behind with that readathon, and so I was still way back reading books from earlier in the year, and this was a book that taught me something. That prompt, and basically this book, when I read it the first time, taught me that I really enjoy middle grade fantasy or middle grade like kind of fairy tale retelling type books. And that's what this is. It's a retelling of the fairy tale The Goose Girl, but it's just really sweet. It's about this girl named Annie who, I don't know if I want to give it all away. I know it's a retelling, but still, I don't know what else, because it doesn't have a synopsis on the back, so I don't know how much is given away on the Goodreads. But yeah, it's just kind of a fantastical, sweet, slow but nice, calming kind of fairy tale retelling. And I just really enjoy it. I love the characters. I like the friendships that are built, that Annie builds with the people around her. And yeah, I love it. It's a great start to the series, and I'm excited to continue it. 5 stars. And then next, I listened to The Night Swim by Megan Goldin. And this was the only book that I didn't read for any kind of readathon. I just really wanted to read it, and I was waiting to get it from my library as the audiobook because it had a podcast in it, so I really wanted to read the audiobook. I would highly recommend that. The audiobook was excellent, and it just happened to come up at this time in November, and I gave this 5 stars. I thought it was a really excellent book. So you might have seen this around because this is a 2020 release and a lot of people have been talking about it. It's a thriller that kind of is more of a courtroom drama than like straight up thriller. And it's about a woman who runs a podcast that would be kind of similar to Serial, I think, because it's kind of like her following a true crime event each season. And this season she's following a current case, which is a rape case. And so she's there at the trial every day, kind of writing down her thoughts and like translating that into her podcast. So in between chapters, we'll see like those podcast episodes or hear those podcast episodes. And then we're following her perspective following this trial. But then she also starts getting letters from this woman who is from this town where the trial is taking place. But 20 years earlier, I think it's 20 years, her sister died in this town, and she thinks there's more to her sister's death and wants this true crime podcast woman to look into it while she's in town. So we're kind of following those different perspectives and our different stories involved in the same town. And I thought this was so well done in the way the court case was. I don't usually like courtroom drama kind of things, but I was just really absorbed in this case and how it was done. I think having the podcast as a way to kind of talk more about the case and the issues with rape and rape cases, on how we, you know, basically make victims relive everything and have to go through their trauma all over again for a case. And just, you know, it's devastating, but it's really, I don't know, it's really worthwhile to listen to and like see how that is. And like it led to a lot of conversations. I actually I asked my husband to listen to this book as well, because I was talking about it a lot, and he's like, well, maybe I should just listen to it. So he listened to it. He also thought it was really well done, and we talked a lot about rape culture, and especially as people that are parents of 2 young girls, and what we want to teach them about their body and everything like that, and about the world out there and what they need to be aware of. I just think it's a really important book. I thought it was really well done. The podcast element was entertaining. I didn't think the whole like the other mystery like from before was like, I don't know what I want to. I don't say it was bad. It was fine. It just wasn't necessary completely, other than it kind of shows kind of a cycle of violence and things like that. That, you know, some of the same things happen over a longer time period, but that wasn't the part that I was really interested in. I was really interested in what was currently going on in the court case, and just thought it was a really well done thriller. Obviously, it led to many hours of conversation for my husband and I think it's an important read, and I enjoyed it. And then last, I want to talk about the 5-star read that was my favorite of the month, and this one surprised me a lot. I did not expect to like this as much as I did. This is called Good Talk by Mira Jacob, and it's a graphic memoir. And just flipping through it at first, seeing the kind of like style of art, I didn't think I would love it, because it's kind of like this style where in the background she has a photo. Some of them are photos she's taken, some are stock photos, and then there's like the drawings of people that are like the same drawing is used over and over in the book, and then it's just conversations. All this is conversations, and I didn't think I would connect with it, and I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I used this for the prompt of the Fall into Reading Challenge, for the graphic novel prompt, for Leading Ladies Readathon. I use this for Roman Holiday. Read a book that will give you a lot of feelings. I did not know that this book would end up working for that prompt until I got to the end, and I had like in this story with those simple drawings and just conversations, I like laughed out loud multiple times. I got really angry. I cried once at least, maybe even a couple times. Like, I just felt everything reading this. I think it's just the fact that it's raw conversations that you really have with the people in your life, and especially with the situation she was in. So basically what this is that Mira, her parents had immigrated to the United States from India, and then her and her brother were born in the United States. So there's just a lot of conversations about her living life as a brown person in the United States, and then later on her raising a young boy who, at around the time when her son is really starting to ask questions about his skin color and things like that. There's also a lot of conversations about the 2016 election. So like both of those things are happening at the same time. Her son is like around 6 at that time, and is starting to ask questions about the difference between the way he looks and somebody else in his class or things like that. And that is relating to like things that are happening at the time of the election. So there's a lot of conversations about that. There's conversations about her childhood. She also was in New York City during 9/11. So there was a lot of conversations about what was happening to her at that time. And so it's just conversations with people in her life, with her husband, with her son, with her parents, with her in-laws. She's married to a white Jewish man, so a lot of those conversations that are happening between her and her in-laws and everything. Yeah, so I just thought this was just really true to life, and like really was just a great read. I would highly recommend it. I think you should pick it up and read it, because, you know, there's nothing more raw than just honest conversations about what happens in real life between people you love but maybe don't agree with. And so highly recommend that one. Loved it. And that's it. So as you can see, I really enjoyed everything I read in the second half of November, and I would recommend all of these. I had a great reading second half of the month. If you have read any of these and want to talk about them, I would love to hear from you down below, and I will see you after Christmas for my 12 Days of Bookmas. Bye.